Prophecies and the Puranas about Kali Yuga and the Golden Age. The Vedas, which are filled with profound knowledge, were once passed on by word of mouth, but from around 5,000 years ago, Vedavyas began to write it down into Sanskrit. Now here are mainly focused on prophecies within the Bhagavat Purana and the Pratisarga Parva section of the Bhavishya Purana, spoken by Sutta Goswami. Bhavishya Purana means the history of the future, and many parts appear extremely accurate. Now, some say it could have been doctored after the actual events themselves. Others say that British scholars tampered with it. Yet it seems unlikely that they would have slipped anything in about Jesus being influenced by Eastern thought, what to speak of Indian independence. However, like for example the Book of Revelation, predictive works are ambiguous, especially Sanskrit ones. Nevertheless, it's really interesting. Note that the prophecies were passed on by sages based in northern India and the Himalayas, and they followed a very regulated life, including a strict vegetarian diet. Their words reflect that. But to avoid weighing this presentation down, I avoid detail and have paraphrased quotes. The images I use represent my personal views of the meanings. It's open, of course, to other interpretations. Now, what's striking about the Bhavishya Purana is that it includes the story of Adama and Havyavati. They're eating from the tree of sin after being misled by Kali as a serpent. Henceforth, their descendants increased meat-eating around the world. Similar, of course, to Adam and Eve's story. It also includes the story of Noah, who builds a boat, herds animals aboard, and survives a great flood. But I think we'll better get into more tangible history here. The outset of this age of Kali. First, some context. The Mahabharata says there was once a very powerful emperor, Maharaj Bharat. Based in Hastinapur, he was the most powerful ruler of his time, and the civilization was based on Vedic culture. All kings paid homage to him, and effectively he held sway over the entire world. Thousands of years after his reign, due to a complex series of events, there was a royal family feud. That led to the huge Kurukshetra war in 3138 BCE. Afterwards, noble Yudhisthira was crowned Emperor of the world, but due to the absence of loved ones, inauspicious omens, and when Lord Krishna left, he stepped down. The age of Kali had begun. When his nephew Maharaj Parikshit took the throne, he tried to protect Vedic culture, but he was cursed to be bitten by a snake bird. His son, Janamejaya, the killer of many snakes, took over. Once he abdicated, his son, Shatanika, ascended. According to the Puranas then, the generations went by. Prophecies that have already happened in ancient history. In the land of Bharat, there was climate change, earthquakes leading to floods, droughts, rivers drying up, and famine. It caused mass emigration. The Brahmin culture declined. People became known as Brahmana just by wearing a sacred thread instead of personal qualification. That caused the ongoing decline. Vedic Dharma in other lands took over on fragmented forms. In those kingdoms themselves began to develop. Meanwhile, the Puranas lists a genealogy of prominent local kings. Now, after Hastinapur was destroyed in a flood, Maharaj Nemichakra moved the capital to Kashami. After the succession of kings continued, Bharat continued to lose its wider influence, and as predicted, the following traits continued to increase. Greed and selfishness, kings not caring for their citizens, being superficial, only looking for profit. There was wars and chaos and envy everywhere. A huge difference between the richest and the poorest of society. Rulers only cared for themselves and not their citizens. The sadhus, holy people, fled for shelter in the mountains. The cleanliness, austerity, mercy and truth all declined in society. The followers of Malechadam, that's cultures which include meat eating, in foreign countries became more intelligent and organized. Now formerly Kashyapa Muni had come to earth from the heavenly planets. He had gone to Kashmir and worshipped the goddess Sarasvati. To revive the Vedic culture in Bharat, he made 10,000 pious people. He returned with them and engaged in the activities of the sages. They were known as the Aryans, and they gradually increased to a population of 4 million. More leaders. Till the Brihadratha dynasty, which lasted for 723 years. Due to different lineages from this point, the list of kings in the Bhavishya and Bhagavat Puranas begins to differ. Kings listed in the Bhagavat Purana and spiritual teachers in the Bhavishya Purana. Now, after an assassination, the Pandavas dynasty ended and is overthrown by the Magadhas. Bhajota came king, and his dynasty included these prominent kings. But meanwhile, unqualified Brahmanas were using the Vedas to justify the ritualistic slaughter of animals, but without the original context or qualification. The Bhavishya Purana predicts, during that time, Kali, pleased with Hari through prayers, so Lord Hari appeared as Gautama in the geology of Kasyapa. Bhagavat Purana. In the beginning of Kali Yuga, the Lord will appear as Lord Buddha, the son of Anjana, in the province of Gaya, for the purpose of deluding those who are envious of the theists. More 12th Canto kings. Then the powerful but controversial Nanda ruled. The Yuga Purana predicts the invasion of the Yavanas, the Indo-Greeks. The Yavanas, wicked and valiant, will reach Kushumadvaj. The thick modifications of Paliputra reached. All the provinces will be in disorder. So the Yavanas will command that area, but intoxicated with fighting, they will not stay in Madhya. There will be a civil war among them in their own country. The 12th canto mentions explicitly Chanakya Pandit, who will betray Nanda. This places us in modern history. Then the Mauryas will rule, and the 12th canto continues its list, spanning centuries. The Pratisarga Parva, 19th chapter of the Bhavishya Purana reads, Once the powerful Shalivahan visited Himatung, and in the Hun region he saw an auspicious person of fair complexion clothed in white cloth. Shalivahan inquired to the man's identity. Isha replied, I am Ishaputra, a son of God, born from the womb of a virgin. He told the king he was the preacher to the Malechas. Among those people he had established the path of truth. The king asked Ishaputra to explain his principles. Isha replied, Having placed the eternal, pure and auspicious form of the Supreme Lord in my heart, I preach these principles for the Malecha's own faith, and thus my name became Isa Masiya, Jesus the Messiah. As some say, the Bhavishya Purana predicts founders of other world religions. The context is them trying to deliver the people of the Malecha lands. By this time, of course, there's many kingdoms across India. The 12th canto lists these. Then low-class people will become kings in areas along the Indus, Chenab and Kashmir. The Bhavishya Purana describes a conflict between Buddhist and Aryadharma faiths. In that context, it explains their move to China. In the Bhagavat Purana, Lord Shiva explained he will appear to teach the impersonal philosophy as such. I will proclaim the identity of the Supreme Soul and the individual soul to be the same Brahman without qualities. I have conceived this doctrine, which resembles the purport of the Vedas, to delude people in this age of Kali. More rulers come and go. Towards the end of chapter 1 of the 12th canto, it says Vishvapuji, called Paranjana, became king of the Magadhas. He will turn everything low class and ungodly, completely disrupting the ruling order from his capital in Padmavati. That's where the list of kings finishes, marking the end of the Sun dynasty. That was around the 12th century. Then it says, Then many uncivilized kings will rule different parts of Bharat at the same time. They will all be low class and irreligious. They'll have little strength in character, devour the citizens, murdering the innocent. They will all suffer ruination. But the Bhavishya Purana describes the likes of Jayadeva Swami, predicted to be an incarnation of the sun god, a poet and great devotee of Lord Krishna, and Madhvacharya, who taught bhakti, devotion to Lord Krishna. The last 5 centuries. The Padma Purana reads, In the first Sanja of the Kali Yuga, I will appear on the earth in a beautiful place by the Ganges shore. I will be the son of Sachi Devi, and my complexion will be golden. Bhagavat Purana. In the age of Kali, Krishna appears in a golden form, chanting the syllables Krishna. He descends along with his weapons, limbs and associates. Those with intelligence worship him with Sankirtan Yagya. Garuda Purana. First he'll be the husband of Lakshmi, then he'll be a sannyasi who stays near Jagannath Puri with Lord Jagannath. Bhavishya Purana. In Kali Yuga, everyone will see my form as a sannyasi, with eyes filled with tears of bliss and bodily hairs erect in ecstasy. About one foreign ruler, the Bhavishya Purana reads, Emperor Akbar established a new religion, Din Ilahi, which underlined the essence of Hinduism, Islam, Buddhist and Christianity. Then the Purana adds, Varanas, forest dwellers, the inhabitants of the islands of Varana, Sri Lanka, developed trade contacts with the Gurundas, especially the Isaputras. Gurundas generally meant cow killers with white bodies, i.e. Europeans, and Isaputra means those who follow the Son of Lord, or perhaps Christians. The inhabitants tried to follow the same teachings of the Sun God, and therefore virtuous and worthy of promoting global business. The king of the western dweep was called Vikat, i.e. horrid talker or obsolete person, and later female relative Vikatavati will rule from Calicut by Ashta Kushalia Marg, Council of Parliament. Her people will build factories. They had high propensity for overseas business with rule of citizens. Then this situation continued until they consolidated their grip by divide and rule concept, till Swadesh, self-rule. Bharat witnessed innumerable turns and became an integral entity under the banner of Prajapalyana, democracy. But by that time the inhabitants of Bharat belonged to many sects, religions and languages, but have since emerged as a strong democracy with an identity of its own. Also in the Bhavishya Purana it reads, One saffron-clad man will travel and teach the Vedas in the language of the Malechas, and he will initiate with fire. The same Purana, Pratisarga Parva, chapter 20 reads, The uncontrolled progeny of Kashyapa Muni had become meat-eaters situated in different countries. Although being of a non-dharmic background, some will attain the Brahminical status. Accepting the tuft of hair and sacred thread, they'll be well versed in the uncontaminated fruit of the Vedas. They'll worship Krishna by yagya prescribed by the lords of the demigods, the protector of Mother Sachi. Predictions of present times and forthcoming events. Despite improved material conditions for some in recent decades, wars continue and the age of Kali proceeds. In the Vedic view, mass meat-eating consumption increases war because industrialized economies rely more on fossil fuels. Of course, more and more meat-eating and outside of the home continues. A huge disparity between the rich and the poor across the world. One can only get justice if one has enough money under the table. People become foul-mouthed and arrogant, and ego will rule the day. People will idolize and have it not for darshan, but for the wrong kind of people, non-spiritual people. People's beauty will be judged by their hairstyle, and the goal of life will be just to fill one's belly. Old people will be ignored, neglected and lonely. Marriage will be made for lust only, and atheism will increase. The only people respected were those who were good at juggling their words. Keeping a family together would only be those who are expert. The youth will become unruly or disenfranchised. The city will be stressful. People will be more and more entangled in their complex cities. Even holy places will become polluted. The land will get drier. There will be more and more environmental disasters. And there will be more impersonalism, intoxication, depression, perversion. Women will become more like men, aggressive and unchaste and unruly. Illusion will increase. However, many people will seek change. New ideas, new concepts will take place. A spiritual revival. Like new shoots poking up through the decay, an ethical green movement will rise. Also a tendency to rediscover ancient wisdom and diets. Though effectively there will be a polarization of humankind between spiritual and dark forces. But the Golden Age will continue, and it will phase in and end such sectarian attitudes. The Bhagavat Purana reads, Krishna says to Mother Ganga, on the earth 5,000 years of Kali will be sinful, and people will deposit their sins in you by bathing. After that the chanting of my holy names will appear. For 10,000 years of Kali, such devotees of mine will be around the whole world. The holy names are like an umbrella, sheltering chanters from Kali's influence. This period will gradually phase in and eventually become mainstream. But what could happen during the crossover points between opposing forces? The Bhavishya Purana predicts these future events. The Daityas, demons, whose stage managed the victory of the Malechas over Dharma Shaktis, forces for good, then constructed Jalayanas, sea vessels, to Hadikand, yellowish people, north of the Himalayas, where men were very strong like Devas initially, but in the course of a few years of Mahayuddha, cunning and deceitful battles, the Hadikand people appealed to Mahendra, their powerful leader, for protection. At Indra's request, Vishvakarma created a Brahmi Yantra, a sophisticated machine, by using which purpose of one khand or region could not travel to another. But this, I suggest, is more than just mere mundane passport control. With enough cooperation, it's already theoretically possible to have a microchip population as a means of creating borders. For example, determine where one can buy or sell, which doors you can pass, and what transport one can use. The Bhavishya Purana continues. There will also be a kind of Vatsya, a less potent or small use, of a Mahavayu, a great wind weapon. This Vatsya Mahavayu will destroy the Daityas, the Yakshas and the Pishchakas, but will protect the Dharmic Brahmanas and other upright persons for a number of years. Therefore, there will be a period of spiritual revival. Perhaps this is the same as the aforementioned Golden Age. However, when Kali Yuga really sets in? According to the Bhavishya Purana, after that period of spiritual revival, Bhogasimha, intense lion-like pleasure, and Kali Simha, sports and amusements, will become amongst the leaders. They will stay in a Krida Vatanaga, city of material enjoyment, and will carry out the wishes of Kali Yuga, especially the task of destroying Varna and Ashram. The effects of Kali Yuga will then continue without resistance. Humans will develop a barbaric, sinful mentality of civilization as a result of collapse. There will be an increase of wars, hunger, drought and disease. By halfway through Kali Yuga, that's about 213,000 years from now, cultural values will have disappeared. There will be neither the institution of marriage, nor kinships, nor social reformer, not even a karmakata, a teacher of morals. Trees will shrink, animals, cattle will too. Flowers, fruits and foods will lessen. The land will gradually lose its fertility, and as a result, the populations will become like scavengers, even if they've got the technology. Beasts of prey and rats will hunt on humans. By the third quarter of Kali Yuga, Kalakalpa, crossbreeded beings will come who will regularly eat human flesh. This species will have beastly affairs with any female. They'll also have affairs with co-males, children and even animals. They will live in hellish places, the worst kind of frightening places of retribution, and be grossly overpopulated. The sky will grow dark and thunder and lightning will become common. By the end of Kali Yuga, 8 years will be considered old, and people will be no more than 2.5 feet tall. The land will be desert-like, yielding nothing. People will eat each other to survive. Mothers will eat their own babies. The world will be overrun by the worst kind of people. By then, demoniac species would have migrated to Earth also. However, the Kalki Purana says the Lord will appear on the earth in Shambhala. Astride a white horse, he and Kalki and his armies will ride out to confront the enemy. First, he will wipe out the armies of Kikat, a city of greed and wealth. That army will include knights who will ride on beasts with teeth like crocodiles. Then Kalki will negotiate with their army of women. A sorcerer will summon the goddess Kali, who will fight ferociously, but Kalki will absorb her into his own body. Then Kalki will vanquish 2 giant Rakshasas. He and his armies will then ride out to the world and take on millions of beastly tribes and kill the demons, Coke and Vikok. Finally, Kalki will kill the serpents guarding their fortress, and therefore be face to face with the Naga Kanyas, empowered guardians of Naga gold. After Kalki's mission is complete, he will crown descendants of Lord Ram as the kings of the earth. From that moment, the Satya Yuga will begin. The demigods will settle on the earth more and more and replenish it. A true, long-term golden age will follow. The longer-term future. That marks the beginning of a new Yuga cycle of 4 ages, a total of 4.3 million years altogether. This red arrow here is the time period we've just covered. Vaishvata Manu, the current progenitor of mankind, will remain for another 43 of these Yuga cycles. Then the next Manu, called Savani, will begin a new generation across the universe. After him, there will be another 6 Manus until the end of this particular day of Lord Brahma. Then, in just over 2 billion years from now, apart from the highest ranking planets, on the Earth will be full devastation. Each day of Lord Brahma is 4.32 billion Earth years long. Brahma will live for a total of 311,040 billion Earth years. Brahma's death will coincide with the time when this universe and millions of others are withdrawn back into the body of Mahavishnu. One lifetime of each universe is just one breath of Mahavishnu, and when he breathes out again, millions of new universes begin. And so on, and so on. In this material world, the time cycle goes on eternally. But the goal of life is to break free from that. So we should focus on developing a loving relationship with the Supreme Lord, and hence enter his eternal abode, which is full of bliss. I hope you found this presentation interesting. Please chant Hare Krishna and be happy.